So today we're going to unpack one of the most famous stories in the world. And it's a story you think you know, but trust me, it holds some powerful and honestly kind of shocking secrets. We hear the phrase Good Samaritan all the time, right? It's basically shorthand for anyone who does a good deed for a stranger. But what if I told you that in its original context, that phrase would have sounded totally bizarre, like a complete contradiction? Yeah. This story isn't just some nice tale about helping people. It's a deeply provocative challenge, and it was absolutely designed to shock its first audience. So to really get the power of this story, we've got to understand how Jesus told stories in the first place. He was a master of this specific form, one that was designed to be anything but simple. He used something called parables. Now, these aren't fables with, talking animals or anything like that. A parable is a story that feels real. It uses characters and situations from everyday life. But here's the key. The whole point is to get under your skin a little bit, to make you curious and really make you think. They're designed to challenge your assumptions, not just make you feel good. And Jesus, well, he was absolutely brilliant at it. I mean, parables had been a tool in Jewish teaching for over 700 years before he even came along. But he just took the whole art form to another level. His stories seemed so simple on the surface, but man, they carried a powerful punch. They often left people wrestling with the meaning for a long, long time. Okay, so with that in mind, let's dive into the story itself. I want you to picture this: a steep, 17-mile road going down from Jerusalem to Jericho. It's winding, the terrain is super rocky, basically a perfect hiding place for bandits. Everyone knew it was dangerous. And this is exactly where Jesus sets the scene.
So the story kicks off with just an ordinary traveler, someone like you or me, just trying to get from point A to point B on this really treacherous path.
And the original audience, they would have immediately felt this sense of unease. They knew the reputation of this road all too well. And just as they would have feared, disaster strikes. He's ambushed. The story takes a really dark and violent turn. The robbers strip him of everything, even his clothes, and they beat him mercilessly. And then they just depart, leaving him half dead on the side of the road. He's completely helpless, stripped of his dignity, hovering on the very edge of life and death. Okay, so now the stage is set for a rescue, right? Jesus introduces 3 different people who come across this desperate man. And the first 2, well, they're exactly the kind of people you would expect to step up and help. First up, we have a priest, a religious leader, a real pillar of the community. He sees the man, he totally gets the situation, and he deliberately crosses to the other side of the road to avoid him. Wow. Okay, then next comes a Levite, another person who's deeply involved in the religious life of the community. And he does the exact same thing. He sees the need, and he just walks away. So at this point, the audience is probably thinking, okay, the third person has to be the hero. It's going to be a regular Israelite, one of us. But this is where Jesus just drops a bombshell. The third person to come along is a Samaritan. Now, to you and me, that might not sound like a big deal. But for the original Jewish audience, a Samaritan wasn't just an outsider. He was a hated enemy, a despised foreigner. Seriously, to them, the term Good Samaritan would have sounded as ridiculous as saying a heroic villain. He is the very last person on earth they would have ever expected to be the hero of this story. And just look at what this shocking hero does. He doesn't just help a little bit. He pours out this incredible, extravagant compassion. He actually gives the guy first aid, using his own oil and wine. He puts the injured man on his own animal, which means he has to walk. Then he takes him to an inn, pays the innkeeper for his care, and even promises to come back and cover any extra costs. This isn't just basic help. This is radical, costly, go-away-out-of-your-way care. So here's the really crucial part. We have to remember, this whole story was told to answer a specific question. But the absolute genius of the parable is that Jesus doesn't actually answer the question that was asked. Instead, he completely flips it on its head. See, the story starts because a religious lawyer comes up to Jesus and asks, "So, who is my neighbor?" And he's basically asking for a loophole, right? He wants a clear definition so he can draw a boundary. He wants to know, who do I have to love? And, more importantly, who can I ignore? Where can I draw the line so I know I've done enough? But after telling this whole story, Jesus asks a completely different question back at him. He says, "So which of these three proved to be a neighbor?" Do you see the switch? He doesn't define who your neighbor is. He asks who acted like one. And this just brilliantly illustrates that masterful twist. The lawyer started by asking, "Who is worthy of my help?" It's a question that's all about judging and classifying other people. But Jesus flips it to a totally different question. How can I become a person who helps? The focus shifts from defining the victim to examining your own character. It stops being about who's in and who's out and becomes all about how you respond to need, no matter where you find it. So what does all this mean for us? How does this 2,000-year-old story resonate in our world today? Well, its legacy is absolutely profound, and it's still so relevant. I mean, think about it. The very phrase, Good Samaritan, comes directly from this one story. We have Good Samaritan laws in many places that protect people who try to help in an emergency. There are countless hospitals and charities named after this very idea. And it's inspired some of the greatest artists in history. We're talking Rembrandt, Van Gogh. I mean, the story is literally woven into the fabric of our culture. But the real heart of it, the core takeaway, is this. The story challenges every single one of us to see need beyond our own tribe, beyond our own comfort zones. The Samaritan crossed these incredibly deep religious and ethnic boundaries to show mercy. And what that teaches us is that true neighborliness, it's not about loving people who are just like you. It's about loving the people who aren't. And that leaves us with the story's final, piercing question. And it's one that is just as shocking and uncomfortable today as it was 2,000 years ago. Because you see, it's not just about helping a random stranger in need. It's about something much harder. Recognizing the humanity in the very people you've been taught to despise. So the real question the story asks us isn't just, will you help someone? It's, are you willing to let your enemy become your neighbor?